Either give your apartment to my sister or move out. My name is Finn. I'm 65 years old, and I spent 38 years building commercial refrigeration systems in Boise. The man who just said those words to me is Preston, my son-in-law. We were sitting in a restaurant downtown supposed to be having lunch. My daughter, Veronica, sat beside him, quiet as stone. I set my fork down slow. Didn't raise my voice. Say that again. Preston leaned back in his chair like he owned the place. You heard me. Mallory needs a place in the city. Your apartment is perfect. You don't need all that space anyway. Mallory was his younger sister, 29 years old, worked in marketing, moved back from Portland 3 months ago. I'd met her twice. She smiled too much and talked too fast. My apartment, I said. The one I bought with my own money. Yeah, but you're getting older. Wouldn't it make more sense to downsize? Maybe find something smaller, more manageable? I looked at my daughter. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I'd bought that apartment 8 years ago after my wife died. 2 bedrooms, corner unit, 10th floor, windows facing the river. It was mine, paid in full. I'd worked every day since I was 17 to have something like that. Veronica, I said, you got something to say? She shifted in her seat. Dad, maybe it's not the worst idea. Mallory is family, and you are living alone in a big space. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just recognition. Preston cut his steak like we were discussing the weather. Look, Finn, we're not trying to be difficult. But let's be realistic. You're not going to be around forever. Why not help family now, while you can still enjoy knowing you did something good? I picked up my water glass, took a drink, put it back down. I'll think about it, I said. Preston smiled. That's all we're asking. But I wasn't thinking about it. I was thinking about the way he said my name, the way he looked at my daughter and she looked away, the way this whole lunch felt rehearsed. After we finished eating, I walked back to my apartment alone. They didn't offer me a ride. Preston said they had errands to run. I took the bus. When I got home, I stood at my window for a long time. The river moved slow below. I'd watched it every morning for 8 years. This place wasn't just an apartment. It was what I had left. I called my daughter that night. She answered on the 4th ring. Hey, Dad. I want to talk about lunch. Dad, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Make what harder? She sighed. Preston's just trying to help. Mallory's struggling and you have the space. It's not like we're asking you to leave the state. You're asking me to leave my home. You could find something nice, maybe closer to us. You live 3 floors below me, Veronica. Silence. That's the point, she finally said. You'd still be close, just in a different unit, smaller, easier. I closed my eyes. Did Preston put you up to this? Or was this your idea? It was a conversation, Dad, between my husband and me. That's what married people do. I wanted to ask her when she'd stop thinking for herself. I wanted to ask her if she remembered the man who raised her, who paid for her wedding, who helped her and Preston with the down payment on their place. But I didn't. I'll think about it, I said again. Thank you, Dad. I knew you'd understand. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my chair by the window until it got dark. Then I sat some more. The next morning I ran into Preston in the lobby. He was carrying a coffee and looked surprised to see me. Finn, hey, early start? Always, I said, headed to the hardware store. He nodded, but his eyes moved past me toward the elevator. Listen, about yesterday, I hope there's no hard feelings. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone. Right, I said. Best for everyone. Exactly. He clapped me on the shoulder. Glad we're on the same page. I watched him walk to the elevator. He pressed the button, checked his phone, didn't look back. That afternoon, I called an old friend named Eugene. We'd worked together for 20 years before he retired and moved into property investment. He answered on the 2nd ring. Finn, been a while. It has. I need advice. Shoot. I told him about the lunch, about Preston and Mallory and my daughter's silence. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. You thinking about doing it? He asked. No. Good. What are you thinking about doing instead? I don't know yet. But I need to understand something first. Tell me about the building I live in. Who owns it? What units are available? All of it. Eugene laughed. Now we're talking. Give me a day. I spent the rest of the week going about my routine. I saw Veronica once in the hallway. She smiled and said she'd call me later. She didn't. I saw Preston twice more. Both times he acted like we were best friends. Both times I felt that cold thing in my chest get a little colder. On Friday, Eugene called back. Got your information. You sitting down? Yeah. The building's owned by a management company. They've got 3 units available right now. 2 on the 4th floor, 1 on the 15th. The 15th is the Penthouse. Just came back on the market last week. Penthouse, I said. Yeah. Big one too. 3 bedrooms, wraparound balcony, 2,000 square feet. They're asking a lot for it, but between you and me, they'll negotiate. Place has been sitting empty for 2 months. I looked out my window at the river. How much? He told me. It was more than I'd ever spent on anything in my life except my first house back when my wife was still alive. You still there? Eugene asked. Yeah, I'm here. Finn, that's a serious chunk of change. What are you thinking? I watched a barge move slow through the water below. I'm thinking I worked my whole life to live how I want. And I'm not about to let some kid tell me otherwise. Eugene was quiet for a second. Then he laughed. You want me to set up a viewing? Yeah, I said. Do that. I grew up in Rapid City. My father ran a small engine repair shop, and I learned early that nothing comes free. You work, you save, you build something solid. That's what I did. I met my wife, Joan, when I was 23. She worked at the diner where I ate breakfast most mornings. We got married a year later in her parents' backyard. Veronica came along 3 years after that. I spent decades working for Travala Group, installing and maintaining industrial refrigeration systems. Grocery stores, restaurants, warehouses. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and I was good at it. I worked my way up to senior technician, then lead installer. By the time I retired, I'd trained half the crew. Joan and I bought our first house when Veronica was 5. Small place, needed work, but it was ours. We saved everything we could. When Joan got sick, the bills came fast. Cancer doesn't care how much you've saved. We burned through a lot of it, keeping her comfortable those last 2 years. After she died, I sold the house. Too many memories, too much space. I found the apartment downtown, 10th floor, corner unit, view of the river. It felt right. Quiet. Mine. Veronica had already married Preston by then. They'd met at some corporate event. He worked in pharmaceutical sales, made good money, talked a lot about his plans. I paid for half their wedding, helped them with the down payment on their apartment when they found one 3 floors below mine. At the time, I thought it was nice, having my daughter close, being able to see her whenever I wanted. I didn't realize I'd made a mistake. Preston was always polite, always smiling, but there was something underneath. The way he talked about money, like it was a game he was winning and everyone else was losing. The way he looked at what other people had and calculated its value. I noticed small things over the years. The way he'd comment on my watch, an old piece Joan gave me for our 20th anniversary. You could get a lot for that vintage model, he'd said once. Or the way he'd walk through my apartment and mention how much square footage was going for these days. I ignored it, figured it was just how young people talked. Then came the lunch. I met with Eugene on Saturday morning. He drove us to the building parked in the garage, and we took the elevator to the 15th floor. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. I stepped out and stopped. The place was massive. Hardwood floors, floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides, light pouring in from everywhere. The balcony wrapped around the entire unit. I could see the whole city from up here. The river looked different from this height. Smaller, but clearer. "What do you think?" Eugene asked. I walked through the space slowly. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen twice the size of mine. The master bedroom had its own section of the balcony. I stood there and looked down. I could see my own apartment building across the way. I could see the 10th floor. I could see my window. I could see directly into Preston and Veronica's apartment on the 7th floor. "Finn?" I turned to Eugene. "How fast can we close?" He raised his eyebrows. "You serious?" "Dead serious. If you pay cash, we can have papers signed in 2 weeks, maybe less." "Do it." Eugene studied my face. "You want to tell me what's going on?" "Not yet, but I will." Over the next 10 days, I moved fast. I'd been smart with money my whole life. The apartment was paid off. I had savings, investments, my pension. I liquidated what I needed to and made an offer on the Penthouse. The management company accepted within 48 hours. I didn't tell Veronica. I didn't tell Preston. I went about my routine like nothing had changed. Preston stopped me in the lobby one morning. "Hey, Finn, have you thought more about what we discussed?" "I have." "And?" "Still thinking." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't take too long. Mallory's lease is up at the end of the month. It would be good to have an answer soon." "I'll keep that in mind." I watched him walk away. He had that swagger people get when they think they've already won. I signed the papers on a Wednesday. Eugene handed me the keys outside the management office. "You're really doing this," he said. "Yeah." "And you're not going to tell them?" "Not yet." Eugene shook his head, but he was smiling. "I've known you a long time, Finn. You're the most easygoing guy I've ever met. But when someone pushes you, you don't push back, you plan." "That's right. What's the plan here?" I looked at the keys in my hand. "I'm going to live my life, in my new place, right above them." "That's it?" "That's it." Eugene laughed. "You're a cold man, Finn." "No, I'm just done being pushed around." I moved into the Penthouse that weekend, hired movers, packed everything up, didn't say a word to anyone in the building. I timed it for Saturday afternoon when I knew Preston and Veronica would be out. They always went to brunch and shopping on Saturdays. By the time they got home, I was gone. The Penthouse felt strange at first. Too big. Too quiet. But I set up my furniture, hung my pictures, and by Sunday night it started to feel right. I stood on the balcony and looked down at the building across the way. I could see the lights in my old apartment, could see Preston and Veronica's place just below it. They didn't know yet, but they would soon. I poured myself a drink and sat in my new chair. The city spread out below me, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than that cold weight in my chest. I felt ready. Monday morning, I woke up early, made coffee in my new kitchen, stood on the balcony and watched the sunrise over the river. It looked different from up here. Better. My phone rang at 8. "Veronica." "Dad, where are you?" "Home." "No, you're not. I knocked on your door this morning. You didn't answer." "I'm at my home, just not the one you're thinking of." Silence. "What does that mean?" "It means I moved." "Moved? Moved where?" "The Penthouse, 15th floor, same building." I could hear her breathing on the other end. Then muffled voices. She was talking to Preston. "Dad, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you move to a bigger place? We talked about downsizing." "You talked about downsizing. I never agreed to it." "But Preston said—" "I know what Preston said. I was there." More muffled voices. Then Preston's voice came on the line. "Finn, what's going on? Veronica says you moved?" "That's right." "To the Penthouse?" "Yes." He laughed. It sounded forced. "That's a big place for one person. Must have cost you a fortune." "It did." "Well, I mean, congratulations, I guess. But now you've got even more space you don't need. Maybe we can still work something out with Mallory. I'm sure there's room up there." I hung up. I finished my coffee and got dressed. Had errands to run. I took the elevator down to the lobby and ran into Preston coming back from his morning run. He saw me and stopped. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." "Finn, come on. This is ridiculous. You bought a penthouse just to prove a point?" "I bought a penthouse because I wanted to. I worked my whole life to be able to make choices like that. Nobody tells me what to do with what's mine." His face changed. The friendly mask slipped a little. "You're being selfish. Mallory needs help, and you're sitting up there in all that space like some kind of king." "Selfish," I repeated. "That's interesting coming from someone who tried to take my home. We weren't taking anything. We were asking you to help family by giving up what I own. It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." I walked past him toward the door. He followed. "Veronica is upset. You know that, right? You're hurting your daughter by acting like this." I stopped, turned around, looked him in the eye. "My daughter has been quiet through all of this. She sat there at lunch and didn't say a word while you tried to push me out of my own home. She called me later and asked me to make it easy, to just go along with it. So yeah, maybe she's upset, but that's on her. And on you." Preston's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake." "No, I made a mistake 8 years ago when I helped you buy your place. Should have kept my money." I left him standing in the lobby. Over the next week, I settled into my routine. The penthouse had everything I needed. The balcony became my favorite spot. I'd sit out there in the mornings with my coffee, watching the city wake up. In the evenings, I'd have dinner out there, watching the lights come on across the buildings. And yes, I could see Preston and Veronica's apartment. I could see them moving around in there. Could see Preston pacing when he was on the phone, could see Veronica cooking dinner. I didn't spy. I just lived my life. But knowing I was up here above them in a place worth more than they'd probably ever afford, that felt like justice. Veronica called 3 more times that week. I let it go to voicemail. She left messages asking me to call her back, saying we needed to talk, saying she didn't understand why I was being this way. On Thursday, I got a text from her. "Dad, please, can we just have coffee and talk?" I texted back, "Sure. I'll be on my balcony tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. You know where to find me." Friday morning, the elevator doors opened at 9 sharp. Veronica stepped out. She looked tired. "Hi, Dad." "Veronica." She walked into the penthouse and stopped, looked around. I saw her take in the space, the windows, the view. "This is beautiful," she said quietly. "It is." I poured her coffee and we went out to the balcony. She sat across from me and stared at her cup. "I don't understand why you did this," she finally said. "I did it because I wanted to. Because I spent my whole life working and I get to decide what I do with what I earned." "But you could have just said no. You didn't have to spend all this money to make a point." "It wasn't about making a point. It was about not letting someone push me around." She looked up at me. "Preston wasn't pushing you around. He was trying to help Mallory. At my expense." "Dad, let me ask you something. When did you stop standing up for me?" She blinked. "What?" "At that lunch, when Preston told me to give up my home or move out. You sat there and said nothing. Then later you called and asked me to make it easier. When did I stop mattering to you?" Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's honest." We sat in silence for a while. I drank my coffee. She wiped her eyes. "Preston said you were being selfish," she finally said. "I know. He told me that too." "Are you?" I looked at her. My daughter, the girl I raised, the woman who'd somehow forgotten where she came from. "No," I said. "I'm not. I'm being clear about what's mine. There's a difference." She stood up. "I should go." "Probably." She walked to the elevator, then stopped and turned back. "For what it's worth, I do love you, Dad. I know you do. But love isn't enough if you won't stand beside someone when it matters." The elevator doors closed on her face. I sat on my balcony for a long time after that. Watched the river, watched the city, thought about Joan and what she would have said. She would have told me I did the right thing. She would have told me to hold my ground. That evening, I saw Preston on their balcony. He was looking up, trying to figure out which window was mine. I raised my coffee cup in a small salute. He saw me. His face went dark. Then he went inside and slammed the door. I smiled and took another sip. This was my place, my life, my choice. And I wasn't going anywhere. 2 weeks passed. I didn't hear from Veronica. Didn't hear from Preston either, which was fine by me. I went about my days, enjoyed my new space, and kept to myself. Then one morning, I found a note slipped under my door. "We need to discuss the family situation. Please call me. Preston." I threw it in the trash. 3 days later, another note. This one was longer. "Finn, I understand you're upset, but we're family. Mallory's situation has gotten worse. Her landlord is evicting her. She has nowhere to go. Please reconsider. We can work something out that benefits everyone." I kept that one, not because I was reconsidering, because I wanted to remember how far he was willing to push. That weekend, I ran into Mallory herself in the building lobby. She was carrying shopping bags and looked surprised to see me. "Oh, Mr. Finn, hi." "Just Finn is fine." She shifted the bags in her hands. "Preston told me you moved to the Penthouse. That's amazing." "It works for me. Listen, I want you to know I had no idea Preston was going to ask you about your apartment. That wasn't my idea at all." I studied her face. She seemed sincere, or maybe she was just good at seeming sincere. Then whose idea was it? She looked uncomfortable. "I mentioned to Preston that I was having trouble finding a place I could afford. He said he'd help me figure something out. I didn't know he was going to involve you. But you knew after, and you were fine with it." She bit her lip. "I mean, if you were offering, I wouldn't have said no, but I never asked you to give up your home." "Good to know." I walked past her toward the elevator. She called after me. "Finn, I really am sorry if this caused problems." I didn't turn around, just pressed the button and waited for the doors to open. That night, Preston showed up at my door. I saw him through the peephole, standing there in his running clothes, catching his breath. I didn't open it. He knocked again. "Finn, I know you're in there. I can see your lights on." I stayed quiet. "Come on, we're adults. We should be able to talk about this." I walked away from the door and went to the balcony, sat down with a book. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. "Preston." I declined the call. He texted, "This is childish." I texted back, "Go home." The next morning, Veronica called. "Dad, Preston said you won't talk to him." "That's right." "Why not?" "Because there's nothing to talk about. He's trying to apologize." "No, he's not. He's trying to manipulate me into feeling guilty so I'll change my mind. That's different." She sighed. "Dad, Mallory really is in trouble. She's going to be homeless. She's 29 years old with a job. She'll figure it out." "How can you be so cold?" "I'm not cold, I'm just not responsible for other people's problems. Especially when those people tried to take what's mine." "Nobody tried to take anything. Veronica, he told me to give up my apartment or move out. Those were his exact words. You were sitting right there." Silence. "I have to go," she said. She hung up. I went about my day, did some shopping, stopped by the hardware store, came home and made dinner. Normal life. Quiet life. The life I wanted. Around 8 that evening, I heard voices in the hallway. Loud voices. I looked through the peephole and saw Preston arguing with someone. Couldn't make out who. Then the elevator doors opened and the voices faded. I thought nothing of it until the next day. Eugene called me around noon. "Finn, I need to tell you something." "What's up?" "I got a call this morning from the building management. Someone filed a noise complaint about you." I almost laughed. "A noise complaint? I barely make any sound up here." "I know. They know. It's obviously bogus. But they're required to follow up on all complaints. Just wanted to give you a heads up." "Who filed it?" "They wouldn't say, but come on, we both know." "Preston." Thanks for letting me know. No problem. And Finn, document everything. If this gets messy, you'll want records. I hung up and sat with that for a while. So Preston was going to play games. Try to make my life difficult because he didn't get what he wanted. That was fine. I'd dealt with worse. Over the next week, 3 more complaints were filed. Excessive noise, disturbing other residents, potential safety hazards on the balcony, all of them unfounded, all of them clearly coming from the same source. The building manager, a woman named Teresa, called me personally on the 4th complaint. Mr. Finn, I want you to know we don't believe any of these complaints are legitimate, but I'm required to investigate each one. I'll need to do a unit inspection. When? Would tomorrow afternoon work? Sure. She came by the next day with a clipboard and a tired expression, walked through the entire penthouse, checked everything, made notes. Everything looks perfect, she said. Honestly, this is one of the cleanest units I've seen. I appreciate you saying that. She hesitated at the door. Off the record? I know who's filing these complaints, and between you and me, it's harassment. If you wanted to pursue action against them, you'd have grounds. I'll keep that in mind. After she left, I called Eugene. They're escalating, I told him. You want me to talk to them? No, let them keep going. They're building my case for me. Your case? Yeah. I'm going to need documentation when this is over. Eugene laughed. You've got a plan, don't you? Always. That weekend, I was sitting on my balcony when I heard shouting from below. I looked down and saw Preston on his balcony, phone pressed to his ear, pacing back and forth. He was angry about something. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Then he looked up, saw me watching. His face went red. He pointed up at me and shouted something. I couldn't hear it, but I could read his lips well enough. I raised my coffee cup again. Same small salute as before. He stormed inside. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Veronica. Dad, you need to stop. Stop what? Preston said you're spying on us from your balcony. I'm sitting on my balcony. That's not spying. That's living in my home. He said you're antagonizing him by existing in my own space. Dad, please, this has gone too far. Can't we just find a way to move past this? Sure. Preston apologizes, admits he was wrong, and leaves me alone. That's how we move past it. You know he won't do that. Then I guess we're not moving past it. She made a frustrated sound. Why do you have to be so stubborn? I learned it from my father. He taught me not to let people walk on me. This isn't about people walking on you. This is about family. Exactly, which is why it hurts more. She didn't have an answer for that. After we hung up, I sat on the balcony until the sun went down. Thought about Joan, about the years we spent building something together, about how she would have handled this. She would have been proud of me. I was sure of that. The harassment continued. More complaints, more bogus claims. Teresa stopped calling me personally and just sent emails confirming each complaint had been investigated and dismissed. Then Preston tried something different. I came home one afternoon to find my building access card wouldn't work. I tried it 3 times at the main entrance. Nothing. Had to buzz Teresa from the call box. Mr. Finn? My card isn't working. Oh no. Let me check. Pause. That's strange. Your card was deactivated this morning. By who? It says here it was a security request. But I didn't authorize it. Give me a few minutes. I'll reactivate it and come down. She met me in the lobby 10 minutes later with a new card. I'm so sorry about this. Someone submitted a false security report claiming your access needed to be revoked. I've corrected it and flagged your account to prevent this from happening again. Let me guess. You can't tell me who submitted the report. She gave me a look that said everything. I thanked her and went up to my penthouse. Sat down and made a list of every incident. Every complaint, every harassment attempt, every phone call, dated and detailed. Eugene was right. I needed documentation. That evening I got an email from Mallory. Hi Finn. I know things are weird right now, but I wanted to reach out directly. I found a place. It's small, but it's mine. I'm moving in next week. I also wanted to say I'm sorry for how everything went down. Preston shouldn't have put you in that position. I hope we can still be friendly. Mallory. I read it twice. It seemed genuine, I wrote back. Glad you found a place. Good luck with the move. Short. Simple. No need to drag her into whatever was happening between Preston and me. But it did make me think. If Mallory had found a place, then Preston had no more excuse, no more reason to keep pushing. Unless it was never really about Mallory at all. I pulled up my banking app and looked at property records, did some digging into Preston's finances. It wasn't hard. Public records, tax information, mortgage details, all available if you knew where to look. What I found was interesting. Preston and Veronica had refinanced their apartment twice in the past 3 years. They were carrying significant debt. Credit cards, car loans, and a second mortgage they'd taken out 18 months ago. They were struggling. Badly. Suddenly the push to get my apartment made more sense. It wasn't about helping Mallory. It was about getting me out so they could take over a paid-off unit, probably sell their current place, and clear their debt. I should have felt angry. Instead, I felt something colder. Clarity. Preston hadn't just been pushy. He'd been desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. I needed to be careful. The next day I contacted a lawyer, an old friend from my working days who'd gone to law school later in life. His name was Vincent, and he didn't mess around. Finn, been ages. What's going on? I laid it all out. The lunch, the demands, the harassment, the complaints, the deactivated access card, everything. Vincent listened without interrupting. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. That's harassment. Potentially stalking, depending on how far it goes. You've got documentation? Every incident. Dated and detailed. Good. Keep doing that. Don't engage with him directly. Let him keep digging his own hole. And if he tries anything else, call me immediately. Will do. One more thing, Finn. Watch your daughter. She's caught in the middle of this. That's not going to be easy for her. I know. After I hung up, I thought about Veronica. About how she'd chosen Preston's side without even asking me what I wanted. About how she'd stopped seeing me as her father and started seeing me as an obstacle. That hurt more than anything Preston had done. I made dinner and ate on the balcony. The city lights were coming on. The river reflected them like scattered stars. I'd lived in Boise for 40 years and never got tired of this view. My phone buzzed. Text from Veronica. Can we please talk? Not about Preston, just us. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. Coffee tomorrow, 10 a.m. Your place or mine? Yours. The next morning she showed up exactly at 10. I'd made coffee and set out some pastries I'd picked up from the bakery downstairs. She walked in and immediately went to the windows. I still can't believe this place. It's something. We sat on the balcony. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup and looked out at the city. Preston doesn't know I'm here. Figured as much. He'd be angry if he knew. Probably. She turned to me. Dad, I don't know how to fix this. There's nothing to fix. Preston made his play. I made mine. Now we live with it. But you're my father. He's my husband. I can't just choose between you. I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to see the situation clearly. What does that mean? I set down my cup. It means Preston tried to take my home. Not borrow it, not rent it. Take it. And you helped him. I didn't help him. You sat there and said nothing. Then you called me and asked me to make it easy. That's helping him. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought it was a reasonable request. To give up my home, to downsize, to help family. At my expense. She wiped her eyes. I didn't see it that way. I know. That's the problem. We sat in silence for a while. I could see her struggling with something. Finally, she spoke. We're in trouble, Dad. Financially. Preston's been under a lot of pressure at work. His commissions are down. We've got debt, a lot of it. I know. She looked up sharply. How? Public records. I did some research. You investigated us? I protected myself. There's a difference. She stood up. That's a violation of privacy. It's public information. Anyone can access it. But you're my father. You're supposed to trust me. I did trust you. Then you tried to take my home. We didn't try to take anything. I stood up too. Veronica, I love you. But you need to hear this. Preston saw an opportunity to solve his problems at my expense. He thought I'd just roll over because I'm old and alone. He was wrong, and you enabled him by not standing up for me. That's not fair. It's the truth. She grabbed her purse. I should go. Probably. At the door, she turned back. For the record, I never wanted to hurt you. I believe you, but intention doesn't matter when the damage is done. She left without another word. I stood on the balcony for a long time after that, felt the weight of it all settling in. The loneliness, the betrayal, the slow, painful realization that my daughter had changed into someone I didn't recognize. But I also felt something else. Resolve. I wasn't backing down. I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and lost too many people I loved to let someone like Preston dictate how I lived the last chapter of my life. That afternoon, I got a call from Teresa. Mr. Finn, I need to inform you that another complaint was filed. This one's more serious. What is it? They're claiming you're violating building bylaws by running a business from your unit. Commercial activity in a residential building. I almost laughed. I'm retired. I don't run any business. I know, but I have to investigate. Can I come by tomorrow? Sure. After she hung up, I called Vincent. They're claiming I'm running a business from my penthouse. Are you? No. Then they're making false claims. That's good for us. Keep a record. Let them keep going. The more they do this, the stronger your case gets. Case for what? Restraining order, harassment charges, maybe even a civil suit if they've cost you anything tangible. I'll think about it. Don't think too long, Finn. These things have a way of escalating. He was right, but I wasn't ready to go nuclear yet. I wanted to see how far Preston would push before I pushed back. Preston pushed further than I expected. I came home 3 days later to find my electricity had been shut off. No warning, no notice, just dark. I called Teresa immediately. There was a work order submitted requesting service termination for your unit, but I didn't authorize it. I don't know how this happened. Fix it. I'm calling the utility company now. This should be resolved within a few hours. It took 6 hours. 6 hours sitting in the dark, unable to cook, unable to do anything but sit and think. That was when I decided I was done playing defense. I called Vincent. They shut off my power. What? Someone submitted a work order to terminate my electricity. Unauthorized. Took 6 hours to get it turned back on. That's it. We're filing a restraining order, and I'm recommending you press charges for harassment. Do it. I'll need you to come to my office tomorrow. Bring all your documentation. I spent that evening organizing everything. Printed out emails, texts, complaint records, dates, times, everything. Built a timeline of Preston's harassment campaign. It was extensive, more than I'd realized. The next day I met with Vincent. He reviewed everything and nodded slowly. This is solid. We can absolutely get a restraining order, and honestly, you might have grounds for a civil suit. How much would that cost me? In legal fees? A few thousand, maybe more depending on how hard he fights. But you'd likely recover damages if you win. And if I don't? You're out the legal fees. But based on what I'm seeing here, you'd win. I thought about it. Thought about dragging Preston through court. Thought about the time, the energy, the attention. Let's start with the restraining order. See how he responds. Smart. I'll file the paperwork today. I left Vincent's office feeling lighter. Not because I wanted to fight, because I was finally fighting back. The restraining order was served 2 days later. I wasn't there to see it, but Teresa told me later that Preston had been furious, claimed it was all a misunderstanding, claimed I was overreacting. Veronica called me that night. "Dad, what did you do?" "I protected myself." "A restraining order? Really?" "He shut off my power, Veronica. He's filed false complaints, deactivated my building access, and harassed me for weeks. What did you expect me to do?" "I didn't know he shut off your power. Would it have mattered if you did?" Silence. "He says you're trying to ruin him." "I'm trying to live my life. He's the one making it difficult." "Dad, please, can't you just drop this?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I'm tired of being pushed around. I'm tired of being treated like I don't matter, and I'm tired of my own daughter asking me to accept it." She started crying. "I don't know what to do." "That's something you need to figure out. But I'm not backing down." She hung up. I sat with that for a while, felt the weight of it, the grief of watching my relationship with my daughter crumble because of her husband's greed and pride. But I also felt certain I'd done the right thing. The next week was quiet. No complaints, no harassment. Preston stayed away from me. I saw him once in the lobby and he walked the other direction. The restraining order was working. Then I got a call from Eugene. "Finn, I heard something you need to know." "What?" "Preston and Veronica are putting their apartment up for sale." I processed that. "When?" "Listing goes live tomorrow. They're asking above market value, but in this area they'll probably get it." "So they're leaving." "Looks like it." Part of me felt relief. Part of me felt sadness. My daughter was moving away because of this, because she'd chosen her husband over her father. "Thanks for letting me know." "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." That evening, Veronica called. "Dad, I wanted to tell you before you heard it from someone else. We're selling the apartment." "I know." "How?" "Doesn't matter. Where are you going?" "We found a place in Meridian, smaller, cheaper. Preston got a new job out there." "Okay." "I wanted to say goodbye. In person." "Can I come up?" "Yeah." She came by an hour later. We sat on the balcony like we had before, but this time the silence was heavier. "I'm sorry it came to this," she finally said. "Me too. I don't think I understood what Preston was doing. Not fully. Not until the restraining order. And now? Now I see it, but he's my husband. I have to support him. Even when he's wrong?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I don't know how to do anything else." I reached over and took her hand. "Then you need to learn. Because supporting someone doesn't mean enabling them. It means holding them accountable." "I know. Do you?" She pulled her hand away. "I'm trying, Dad. I really am. But this is hard for me too. I know it is." We sat there until the sun started to set. Finally, she stood up. "We're moving next month. Maybe after some time passes, we can try again. Rebuild." "Maybe." She hugged me at the door. It felt different, fragile, like something that might break if either of us held on too tight. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too." After she left, I poured myself a drink and went back to the balcony, watched the city lights come on, thought about everything that had happened, everything I'd lost and everything I'd kept. I'd kept my home, my dignity, my right to live my life on my terms. But I'd lost my daughter. Maybe not forever, but for now. That was the cost. I could live with it. Preston and Veronica moved out 3 weeks later. I watched from my balcony as the moving truck pulled up, watched them carry boxes and furniture down, watched Preston direct the movers with that same aggressive confidence he'd always had. He never looked up, not once. Veronica did, just before they left. She stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the building. I don't think she could see me from that angle, but I raised my hand anyway. She got in the car. They drove away. The apartment sat empty for 2 weeks before someone new moved in. A young couple with a baby. I met them in the elevator one morning. They seemed nice, quiet. "You're in the penthouse, right?" the man asked. "That's right. Beautiful unit. We looked at it before settling on the 7th floor, way out of our budget." I smiled. I got lucky. Life returned to normal. I settled into my routine. Coffee on the balcony in the morning, errands in the afternoon, reading in the evening. The penthouse felt more like home every day. Then one morning, about a month after Veronica moved, I got a call from Vincent. "Finn, I thought you'd want to know. Preston filed for bankruptcy last week." I set down my coffee. "Bankruptcy?" "Yeah. Looks like he'd been carrying more debt than anyone realized. The move to Meridian was supposed to be a fresh start, but it didn't work out. His new job fell through. Now he's underwater on everything." "What about Veronica?" "She's listed on the filing, too. They're both in deep." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Satisfaction that Preston was facing consequences. Sadness that my daughter was suffering because of his choices. "Thanks for letting me know." "No problem. Also, I wanted to tell you the restraining order is still active. If he contacts you, let me know immediately." "Will do." After I hung up, I sat with that information for a long time. Preston had pushed so hard to take my apartment because he was drowning, and instead of asking for help, instead of being honest, he'd tried to manipulate and bully his way out of his problems. Now he had nothing. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. 2 months passed. I didn't hear from Veronica, didn't hear from Preston. Life moved on. Then one afternoon, I was sitting on my balcony when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Finn? This is Teresa from Building Management." "Hey, Teresa, what's up?" "I wanted to give you a courtesy call. Preston tried to enter the building this afternoon. He was turned away by security because of the restraining order. But he was asking about you. Wanted to know if you still lived here." My chest tightened. "Did he say why?" "No. He left when security threatened to call the police. But I wanted you to be aware." "Thanks for letting me know." I called Vincent immediately. "Preston just tried to get into my building. Did he make contact with you?" "No. Security stopped him." "Good. I'll file a report documenting the violation. If he tries again, we'll press charges." "Okay." That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Preston showing up. What he wanted. Whether he'd try again. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Please. Preston." I stared at the message. Knew I should ignore it. Knew I should forward it to Vincent. Instead, I typed back. "No." Another text came through immediately. "I made mistakes, I know that, but I'm trying to fix things. I need help." I typed, "Should have thought of that before." His response, "Please, for Veronica's sake." I put the phone down, went to the balcony, looked out at the city, thought about my daughter, about how this would affect her, about whether I had any responsibility to help despite everything that happened. Then I picked up the phone and texted one final message. "You made your choices. Now live with them. Don't contact me again." I blocked the number. Then I called Vincent and forwarded him the texts. "Good," he said. "Now we have documented proof he violated the restraining order. Want me to press charges?" "Yeah," I said. "Do it." The charges were filed the next morning. Preston was arrested 3 days later for violating the restraining order. He spent one night in jail before posting bail. Veronica called me after. "Dad, what did you do?" I protected myself, again. "He's in jail. He violated a court order. There are consequences for that. He was just trying to talk to you. He was told not to contact me. He did it anyway. That's on him." She was crying now. "Dad, we're losing everything. Our house, our cars, everything. Preston can't find work because of the bankruptcy. And now he has an arrest record. You're destroying him." "I'm not destroying him. He destroyed himself. How can you be so heartless? How can you still not see what he did? He tried to take my home. He harassed me for months. He shut off my power. He violated a restraining order. None of that is my fault. He made mistakes. He made choices, bad ones. Now he's facing the consequences. And what about me? I'm your daughter. Don't I matter? My chest tightened. Of course you matter, but that doesn't mean I'm responsible for fixing your husband's problems. So you're just going to let us suffer? I'm going to let you figure out your own life like I had to figure out mine. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there holding the phone, feeling the finality of it. My daughter was gone. Maybe not forever, but for a long time. That was the price of standing my ground. I could live with it. The next few months passed quietly. I heard through Eugene that Preston and Veronica lost their house in Meridian, moved into a rental. Preston found work as a sales associate at a hardware store. Veronica took a second job waiting tables. They were struggling, really struggling. Part of me felt bad for them. Part of me didn't. One evening, I was sitting on my balcony when I saw someone standing on the sidewalk below, looking up at the building. It was dark, but something about the posture looked familiar. Preston. He stood there for maybe 5 minutes, just looking up. Then he walked away. He never came back. In the end, Preston and Veronica divorced within the year. I heard about it through Eugene, who heard it from someone in the building who knew someone who knew them. The bankruptcy had been too much. The stress, the resentment, the blame. It broke them. Preston moved out of state. Montana, I think. Trying to start over somewhere people didn't know his story. Veronica stayed in Idaho, got her own small apartment, started rebuilding her life piece by piece. She sent me a letter about 18 months after they moved out. I found it in my mailbox one afternoon. No return address, but I recognized her handwriting. Dad, it said, I'm sorry. For all of it. You were right about Preston. You were right about a lot of things. I was too proud to see it at the time. Too scared to admit I'd made a mistake marrying him. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know I understand now. I hope you're happy in your penthouse. I hope you're living the life you deserve. Maybe someday we can talk again. Love, Veronica. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my desk drawer. I didn't write back. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. Preston never recovered from what happened. The bankruptcy, the arrest, the divorce, it all followed him. He bounced from job to job, never able to rebuild what he'd lost. His greed and manipulation had cost him everything that mattered. He'd tried to take from me to save himself, and in the end, lost far more than he ever could have gained. I still live in the penthouse. Still have my coffee on the balcony every morning. Still watch the river and the city lights. I worked my whole life to have this. To live on my own terms. To make my own choices. Nobody was going to take that from me.